weren't having enough problems here.
Okay, sorry.
Just be careful what you say.
We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order 5 minutes late, but sorry we had some technical difficulties. I didn't have to be told that. I saw when they brought the bucket in. I kind of recognized the problem. But we'll go ahead and do our invocation and followed by the pledge of allegiance.
Ask you to be with us. Help us to be quick to hear your voice, quick to follow your lead. Thank you for all your blessings, Lord. Ask you to be with us in Christ's name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take the roll, please.
Mayor Wolf.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Hamilton.
Here.
Mr. Adams.
Here.
Mr. Linderman.
Here.
Go ahead and approve the consent agenda in minutes for the March 29th, the special meeting. Any questions or anything on? Any yeas or nays? We're good to go. Thank you. We have some special appearance, Carl Reed and Ingram.
Good evening. Thank you for having me present to you all. My name is Rich Herrera. I'm the partner in charge of the county assistance we've been providing the city for about the last 6 months. And what I want to do is give you a quick update on what we've done and answer any questions that you may have for me. Since we started off, mainly we've been focusing on updating your monthly processes, catching you up with your bank reconciliations is one area we've worked on. So we have caught you guys up to the most recent bank reconciliation of April. As part of that process, we've identified areas where your city staff is able to help us kind of do routine daily entries to make the bank reconciliation process a little bit more smoother, take a little bit less time, and make it more accurate. And we've been working a lot with trying to find areas where the staff, which I know they work really hard, but areas where they can do certain tasks that take time away from that we're not having to do. Obviously, we don't want to charge you for things that your staff can do, and also to help them, kind of grow in their profession. So a lot of our time's been spent in that area. Second focus we've had is on the 2022 audit. As of right now, we have any requests that your auditors, James Moore, has requested, we have given to them. I know Chris has spoken to them last week, and as far as we know, the audit is progressing in the right direction. I don't have any timeline on when they think it will be done. My understanding is everything that they need so far, they've been given, and hopefully we'll get a result from them.
Just to fill in that blank, since we're pretty close now.
Yeah, in my conversations with James Moore, they told me last week that we're approximately 3 weeks away. They're stating somewhere around June the 7th. They should be close to getting us a draft copy of the audit.
Okay. And then kind of curtailing to the next step is your 2023 audit. So as we're starting to work on obtaining and identifying certain items you will need for your 2023 audit. Certain items we have to wait till the 22 audit is finished to be able to really get those numbers correct. But our hope and our goal is that as the 2022 audit's finished and the auditors are ready to provide a request list, that most of that information will be ready and we can just jump right into your 2023 audit. And the last thing really is just answering questions from both staff and Chris. There's been certain projects, certain little things they've asked us to do, looking at allocations of insurance, looking at inventory, just as questions come up from staff and from management, our job is just to answer those and just do whatever's needed for the city to keep you guys up to date. Again, this is just really quick, 30,000 foot view, but if you guys want to have any questions or want me to go into more details, I'd be happy to.
On the 23 audit, you have everything you need to turn it over to Moore yet, or not?
We are working on identifying, we're working on certain areas and getting information ready for it. Our hope is that by the time they're ready to go, we'll have everything. The way the audits work, because the 22 audit may identify issues that we're not aware of, there's certain areas we want to wait till the audit's over because we don't want to have to do something twice. So if they find things and we're not aware of it and we kind of assume that 22 is right and we start going through 23 and there's differences that they find, we're going to have to go back. So obviously in our profession, we know kind of what might change and what might not change. So we're focusing on the items that we know are not going to change. And there's some areas that we're kind of waiting until the audit's over.
You said that you'd be ready to go when they are, and it seems like they're going to have 22 done in 3 weeks.
Mhm.
Will you be ready in 3 weeks?
I would say that we'll have the majority of what they'll need in a good spot. Yeah, I'm not promising 100% of it, but no. And to be honest with you, I'm not speaking for James Moore, but my guess is that they're not going to start the next day. But our goal is by the time we have their audit, see any adjusting entries that they have, the stuff that we're waiting on for the audit to be done, we'll be able to wrap that up within a few weeks. And I would think that after the audit's over, they'll have 100% of what they need within a few weeks.
Any questions? Okay. Gilbert? Any questions in the audience? All right.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sweetwater update, right in front.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of Mexico Beach. To kind of catch you up real quick, Brent Scarborough and Company.
You want to step over that podium, please? Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Brent Scarborough purchased this property 6 years ago. And due to COVID and obviously the hurricane and just a multitude of things, we kind of drug it out as far as development this long. The property is zone tourism mixed use. We've never asked for any other zoning. We've always stayed within that zoning guideline. We've taken feedback from the city as well as feedback from the citizens of Mexico Beach to try to develop a better design, and we feel we've come up with the best design that we can do on this piece of property. Richard Ferry works for Brent Scarborough, the owner, in the land development office, and then Steve's here with Moore Bass Engineering, and Steve's going to kind of go over the current design so everybody can take a look at that.
What's happened that you're here today? What's changed that you're here today?
I'm going to leave that to Steve real quick.
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Steve Moore with Moore Bass Consulting, with civil engineers, surveyors, planners that have worked on this project since Brent Scarborough purchased it. The reason we're here tonight is we're not asking for anything. We are in the process of putting together the details of a development agreement that's just going to establish some of the details of the project, and thought it would be prudent to bring this in front of you guys. I know that some members of the council that weren't here when this project was first, when the preliminary plat was approved back in March of 2023. And so we thought it'd be an opportunity just to kind of talk through that. There had been a couple of little minor modifications made. I want to just kind of walk through those and explain what those were, and then be happy to answer questions.
So the goal is you're here today to eventually, then your next step is ask for a development.
Next step, yes, sir. The goal tonight is just simply to update you on where we are and why it's taken so long to get to this step. I guess maybe that's
How far are we from you coming back? With
we think maybe in the next 30 to 60 days. I mean, subject to your attorney being able to review the details. We're still ironing out the paperwork on our end, but we intend on submitting that within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Anybody else at the table have any questions on why?
No, I know I'm new. I'm one of the new ones, and I know y'all went through your processes and had some preliminary approvals. The park.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not against your development, but is there anyway, is the park the absolute best
Yeah, that,
road. I mean, I just feel like we're gonna be dividing park up.
understood. If you don't mind, if it's okay, let me just walk through real quick all the changes and then we can drill down into
Okay,
those
yeah,
details.
I wanted to make sure these guys knew why you were here.
Yes, sir.
Where
Yes,
we're
sir.
going.
Yes. So, and hopefully you can see this, and I know, this one kind of got moved, and we're gonna put it in front of that table right there, maybe so the citizens can see it, and I'll try to get out of the way of this thing. So again, not changing the zoning, the preliminary plat was approved back in March of 23. We're not adding any lots to the layout. It is essentially the same land use configuration, just a couple little minor modifications, but as of right now, where we are is we've engaged all of the consultants to put together the environmental permits. We've updated our flushing studies, traffic studies. We've hired the company that's doing the bridge designs, boat ramps, the sheet pile wall designs, and then we're at the same time doing all the design of the internal roadway and utility infrastructure. The only changes made to this layout are from the version that was approved in March of 23 is that as a result of the detailed flushing study, we were determined, the environmental folks determined that it was possible to increase the width. It was previously shown between 50 and 60 feet wide. The finished portion of the canal is now 90 feet wide, which allows for better flushing, allows for boats, canal side boat parking, and still to be able to navigate between those boats. So we felt like that was an improvement in the plan. And as part of that, we had at the front kind of entrance to the development, we had some townhomes along this side of the canal. That was on the plan that was approved. What we've done is we've just taken those and moved them to the interior of the project to replace those with 70-foot wide single-family detached lots on the canal, on the improved section of the canal. Again, same number of units. We just have moved these units that were attached here to the center part of the development here. And then these interior townhomes will be all rear alley access. And so that's a plan, a component change. The size of the commercial area slightly got smaller. The size of the marina area slightly got larger because we were able to widen the canal. The access points are the exact same, and I know we want to talk about Parker Park, but again, based on the last version of the approved plat, was an access to 36th Street, to 31st Street, 30th Street, 29th Street, and then the Parker Park entrance.
You say those again.
I'm sorry?
Can you say those streets again?
36th, up at the top here, 31st, 30th, 29th, and then the Parker Park entrance. So one other minor change, the previous plan had two internal private boat launch areas. There was one on this side of the canal, one on this side of the canal. We have eliminated the one on the outside and have again initiated the final design of that boat ramp at the center of the parking lot that's going to be for the residents in the community. There was also some discussions that happened during the preliminary plat approval that never got kind of formalized on the plan. One of the discussions was sidewalks down 36th Street from the proposed entrance all the way to 98 on both sides. So the development agreement, the revised plan reflects those sidewalks that will run along both sides of 36th Street down to 98. That was just one of the items that was discussed, but never got really solidified up and shown on the site plan itself. So we've added that. And then as it relates to Parker Park, again, this is based on maybe prior administration, prior discussions, but the conversation led to that serving as an entrance for the 60 lots that would front on this side of the canal. And recognizing concerns with safety and with a lot of things, there was a lot of back and forth on how to best situate that road. What we proposed is that road is placed at an 80-foot right-of-way. Right now, it's on city-owned park property. It's a private driveway. What we propose is that be kind of more standardized as an 80-foot wide right-of-way for the length of that road from 98 to the canal. And in that 80-foot right-of-way, we build a boulevard-style entrance road with a beauty strip off of the east side of the travel lane, and then a 10-foot multi-use path that would safely allow pedestrians from 98, again, separated from the vehicular traffic, to the park. And then there's going to be a section of that canal that would obviously have to be filled to be able to support the construction of that roadway. And then we are building the bridge over that roadway, and in further discussions with the city, have agreed to make that bridge be at a elevation that allows kayakers and paddleboarders to be able to navigate underneath that bridge in the event that the city decided to do kind of a launch area on the east side of the bridge. So that's one of the changes as it related to that. And I think that's, and then there was a request to donate a strip of land, a lot that is shown right here, this kind of green area there. That's
13,000
yes, sir.
square feet.
And that lot and the developer owner has agreed to donate that to the city for use in as parking or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of I really think that sums up the changes that were made to the plan. Again, very minor changes as it related to the original approval. Right now, we're continuing on with FDEP on getting the canals approved, the wetland permits filed. I know there was some confusion about there's some conservation easements that are recorded throughout the project that were associated with a prior applicant, the Corey family, when they got their environmental permit. They, as part of their mitigation strategy, they had conservation easements over certain areas, but the impacts that necessitated those conservation easements never occurred. So those conservation easements will go away and replaced with new conservation easements that will be tied to the permit and the mitigation strategy for this project. And the Stantec is currently in the process of getting those permits filed and calculations complete. If you see anybody on site now, they're doing geotechnical borings at the end of Parker Park for the bridge. I know that there was trucks out there last week. And so if you see that, that's what they're doing there, just again, to help with the engineers that are doing the bridge design. So I think that pretty well sums up where we are. And again, our next step is to, unless you have any changes or questions tonight, and changes to the plan, is to try to lock this development agreement terms down and then submit that to you so that we can move that forward to the next step.
What is the commercial area you're gonna reduce? How much you reduce that?
It reduced by 1 acre. It went from 11 acres to 10 acres. And to my knowledge, there's no official user of that commercial area. I know there's been a lot of back and forth discussions. The plan that you see here is something I made up. It is just a representative example of what could fit on the property. There hadn't been anybody that's given us any kind of specific footprints or details that says we need this much parking, this much building. That was just what seemed like it fit within the proposed development area.
Is there anything more than it's just a better pricing to put houses up on a canal versus?
We thought from a marketability standpoint to come into the main front door of the development and have bigger houses stacked there. Plus the previous layout had this same size lots, but they were interior and they really didn't have, any good, there was no canal access. And so we just figured it made it better from a marketability and, aesthetic factor, it would look better.
I want to allow whoever's here, maybe if they had any questions or anything, in the audience.
Got a couple.
John, I'm gonna go ahead and have you go ahead and ask that question of the developer.
Sit here, you want me
You
to
can
stand?
do it right there.
Okay, good. One, the commercial area, that you're doing, will that be sold or will that be leased?
I believe the developer itself, go ahead.
Our goal would probably to sell that. Our goal is to sell that and find a tenant who can do a whole inclusive or a whole inclusive commercial center.
Second question, I understand the development or the HOA is gonna take care of, keeping the canal clean. How often and how?
Mayor, is it okay to, I feel bad, turn my
Yeah,
back to you.
I thought you wanted to stand up and just talk to the
Okay.
council and answer the question. That's
Sure,
fine.
sure. The question was about the canal.
Yes,
We have hired a company, or an engineering company, Stantec, and part of their team is that's your job. And they'll outline this, and we'll have a maintenance schedule that the HOA will be required to follow. So we haven't gone and figured it out yet because we don't know exactly the depth of the canal. And we do know the flushing of it, which will help towards that. But they're the ones who, just like every detention pond that we build, they look at the whole hydrology, determine the appropriate the maintenance schedule. And so they'll be part of their employees to design that for us.
Thank you.
Yes,
All right. Any other questions? Lisa, Logan, you can do it right there, Lisa.
Okay. I'll just ask a few because I have a great many of them, so we'll.
Well, here's what I'm gonna tell you,
You
okay?
can have my time. You can have my time.
What I'd like to do, I mean, remember, we're just having them, they're just coming in to give a presentation that they're getting ready to move forward. I wanna be courteous and kind to the citizens, same as the table, and allow some time. But we can't get in the weeds, okay? We just need to ask a few questions. But if you have more than that, send them in to the city administrator. And we
Oh, I
can get,
will.
and we can get the developed answer. But let's try to answer a couple.
You said that you were working on permits. Have you actually applied and or received any DEP or Army Corps permits?
No, ma'am, we've had the pre-application conference with FDEP, and that's the extent of permitting with FDEP, and we have to finalize the road design to be able to determine the exact amount of wetland impact, amount of wetlands that are gonna be impacted, so that the environmental consultant can finish up their application with the Corps of Engineers.
Why do you think that you need 5 entrances when we have 200 apartments that only require 1 entrance?
I'm not sure that we had made that exact pick. I think it came as a result of numerous meetings with the city and various public hearings. And unfortunately, I wasn't involved in the very beginning. Rich, I can let you speak to that. But there was, I know, a lot of different discussions on the proposed access locations and trying to avoid them hitting the heavily residential access locations. And that this was the result of those many discussions. But
No, I think, appreciate that. Steve. I think that Steve hit that on pretty accurately. I've been developing for a long time. Never have I had a question about too many access points. Usually it's you don't have enough. But on this one, it's exactly right. We've had many different discussions about where to come in. And when we only had one access point on over by 36, there was too much traffic coming out to 36. So we said, okay, let's find a way we can work all the way around. And then through several different iterations of it and discussions with mayor, council, and additionally representatives from the city, going through individual roads by people's houses was less appetizing for those residents who live along those roads, and that's why Parkwood Park became desirable to the previous administration. That's why we pursued it.
One more question.
Please.
You're using 31st Street as one of the entry exits. How do you propose to run a road to 31st Street when there's now a building in the middle of it?
And we saw that. The original one of the iterations of it had us coming down and jogging around that. We at one point had come in and tried to propose some rearrangement of that area. It wasn't well received when we presented it, and so our idea would be that really 29th is more of a primary entrance point, and it turns one way on the backside of the hard. Thank you. I'm sorry, not 29th. What is it? 30th. So 30th becomes our primary entrance, and it turns into one way beyond the hardware store, and then the exit points they can come down and then have to work through that configuration.
yeah, we don't anticipate 31st Street being a primary.
It would definitely will not be an entrance point. It'd be more of an exit.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Anybody else out
I just have a real quick comment.
there?
You guys have a map right?
Yeah, I know. I saw it before we got here. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Way to go.
So Alan,
I love that.
This is a target market for the residential area. Is it permanent residence or investment properties for short-term, long-term rental, or who do they give salaries to?
That's really a great question. Our target is owners. We're not in the build to rent market. I've never done one of those projects. Our owner has never done one with Brent Holdings. Our target market is fee simple owners of these properties. We're not looking to bring in investors. In fact, we've talked at length about how to manage that through the HOA. HOAs can be very effective, or we found them to be very effective in limiting the number of rentals that come through.
You anticipate the HOA restricting short-term rentals?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Short-term, long-term. You gotta have some flexibility, especially where we are in this market with the Air Force Base. We might see some people, but limiting that to 10-15% is normal for us.
So long-term is okay with Air Force personnel.
Absolutely. But even still, we want to limit that as much as we can. But I agree.
Short-term, we can,
Yes, sir. Yeah, this would be an owner occupied, owner used, especially with the amenities we have. Be better served by owners occupying that.
I don't know if I can put this where it's understandable, but, you're going to sell units. Now, is your HOA going to prevent short-term, like they're coming for a week or something like that? Is there gonna be limits on that? That's in the HOA? Because you've already sold the property.
The HOA will have to manage that down the road. We will be the declarants initially, and we intend to limit that. Absolutely, yes, ma'am. And that way, the homeowners will govern themselves. That's traditional.
All right, that's good. Let's go ahead and move to the table, see if there's any questions at the table. Tim, Dan?
I got quite a few questions, actually. And I
Well-
know you're trying to move this through.
Yeah, again, we have them doing a presentation, they're gonna come with a development order, but we have a way from the council to send those in to the city administrator or directly to the.
Okay, respectfully, there's some things I'd like to ask before you.
Can you speak up, please?
I will certainly try.
Thank you.
So, all right, let me begin. So I find these entry exits disruptive probably no matter what you do, because just where you're at, your property. I've looked at a couple of things, and I'm wondering if we could look at coming through the city lot, through the street here that comes up the city, crosses into the new property that the city has obtained. And there's a strip there that belongs to St. Joe, requesting authority to use that to enter versus coming through Parker Park. Is that an option that could be looked at?
We reached out to St. Joe probably 3 years ago, and they weren't interested.
Okay.
On that very piece?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
On the very piece?
Yes, about the very same thing. Previous administration brought the same thing up.
Okay. And then I just want to echo what was said about 31st Street. I can see how that needs to be tied to your commercial area, but in no way should that be a main entry exit. That's really not a street. It's a big parking lot, 31st Street. So I would recommend you take that off altogether as the entry exit.
Yeah, one of the things we actually talked about this on this plan is taking and just basically turning that road to where it doesn't invite any access down there. I mean, we can still leave that as an option, but they would have to make a left turn. They'd have to stop, make a turn, but it would keep traffic from here kind of flowing in that direction to get down there and avoid what could be chaos one day at 30th
So
Street.
if I understand what I have here, if this is correct, 30th Street would be one way to the north, and then coming out would be one way out 29th. Is that correct, or is that two way?
29th is two-way.
So I think we gotta look at 29th being one way. And I know that's gonna be a problem for the residents that have to go up 30th and then back down 29th to live on 29th Street. But as I look at the flow and the width of that road, I just don't think it's wide enough for two-way traffic, especially that volume. I have a concern about that. Canal dredging. How are you gonna prevent, as you're widening and deepening the canal, from that flow going into the main canal and filling in what we've just dredged and we dredge all the time?
They'll use sediment barriers as they're doing that work. I mean, we'll hire the contractors will be doing that work. Huh? Yeah, I mean, really, there's very little flow that goes there now. That's why we've had to do all these flushing studies because.
So it'll be blocked off while you're doing that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have rules that we'll have to follow to make sure that we don't increase and turbidity and sedimentation.
All right, I'm sorry, Mayor. Next question is construction flow. Where is that traffic gonna go through? That, the heavy equipment, the dump trucks, the concrete trucks, the lumber trucks? How's that going in and out? Which road?
I think we'll probably have to have two locations, north side of the canal and south side of the canal. The north side of the canal likely would be coming from 36th Street. What we had talked about possibly doing was, you know, making the way here and doing the staging and everything for the bridge construction on the north side of the canal. As far as the south side of the canal, Frank, have you given any thought to construction
It's
interest?
gonna be the two-way road that.
29th.
Yeah, 29th
You have
Street,
to come in and out 29th Street.
stage there.
Right.
But we
Stage
I mean,
much further
we-
in, Steve.
Huh?
You'd stage much further in.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of room.
Oh,
Plenty
yeah,
of
you
room.
can stage all of there.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, but
I see that probably as the biggest issue for the residents. 'Cause that's a lot of heavy equipment. Those dump trucks always have mud that comes out. And then when you get to the Highway 98, trying to come out, you're probably gonna have to have flagmen just based on the type of traffic and the flow there. I think you're gonna have to really look hard at that, so we have an efficient flow of traffic.
Sure.
Okay, and then I would ask that you look at sidewalks on some of these other roads, 30th and 29th, because people are gonna come out of your center area there, the inside area. How are they gonna walk out or bike out? What's their means? Because there are no sidewalks there. And, you know, streets.
Steve, sorry, sir, Mike, could I ask, do you know the right of way on 29?
I want to say it's 50 feet. If it is, then that would be ample room, but it
We
would
should
largely
see-
depend on the right.
It's a fine idea. I'm not disputing the idea. I have no problem doing it. It's the question of to make sure we have enough room. We don't want to go and take property, and we don't have the authority to do that either.
Right, I understand. And then lastly, it looks like you have somehow made a way to keep that oak tree up on
Yeah.
36.
Mhm.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, we've had our landscape architect look at
Yeah, I heard
that and
about
give
that.
us all the guidance to make
That
sure.
was an
it's-
important issue.
Yeah.
It is to a lot of people. So.
When I'm down here, I eat my lunch underneath it
There you go.
in my truck, so I like it too.
There you go.
All right, thank
We
you.
got anybody else at the table have any questions?
Yeah, the only, the park, I mean, it's 80 foot wide. I understand this has been through several stages, so that would just be I feel like when it's done, we're not gonna have much left there.
Sure. Steve, can I-
And
Talking about the park. He's gonna fill in the ditch.
he's gonna fill in what ditch he needs.
Well, this is your first go round, so to catch you up real quick, we proposed to fill in the entire front of the canal that fronts 98 in front of the park, and it would increase the size of the park 40%. And when you look at 40%, say, I wouldn't do 40%. Well, if you look at the slopes, the unusable land, because it does slope back off the canal, when you scale it out, it's 40%. We got a lot of pushback from that. People didn't want to fill that front canal in, residents especially. I thought they'd want a larger park, but we backed off of that idea. Now, unfortunately, we've spent, I don't know how much we've spent on geotechnical and surveying and doing elevations and all these things. And we just don't have the dirt to do it now. But if the city wants us to fill that front canal, we'll provide the manpower and the equipment, and we'll roll it into the permit. We'll pay for the wetland impacts as well for the canal. We've talked to the Army Corps of Engineers about it, and they were fine with it as long as it's park improvement for the citizens of Mexico Beach and not a development. They will not fill in a canal for development. But if you want to fill it in and y'all can provide the dirt, we'll do it. So it's something to think about.
It is. The only other question, 36th Street sidewalks.
Yes.
You got 4 foot on each side, but we have a bridge.
They're gonna have to merge at the bridge. Yes.
Then that's,
There's just no way we can extend.
because it said that we're responsible for all the easements and
Well, that, I
as a
think,
city, so I was
Yeah,
like,
that-
how we're gonna,
that was just if, for the areas, any area where there was some impediment to be able to
Excuse
put
me,
that.
Just a second. You guys want to take it outside and talk for a little bit? Really, we got enough going on at the table. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's just my.
yeah, if we weren't able, the reason we put that in there is just because our goal is to fit it all in the right of way. And if it was an area where you just couldn't avoid it, then we needed to let you know that we may need some help getting an easement to go around a power pole or whatever it is. But as far as at the bridge, the idea would be that those sidewalks would just kind of merge at the bridge, and you would have to just kind of watch for traffic as you cross it, just based on the cost to build an elevated.
Well, I know. And we're dealing with 15th Street now.
Yeah.
Finally gonna get that. So.
Now, I will say that the bridge that we're building here will be wide enough to convey sidewalks across there.
We've been here 5 years kicking this around. 5 years. I'm ready to move on.
Can I have one more? We closed it at the, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you, because you had something to say.
Parker Park was some consideration about the food trucks and expansion of that and making that a really nice place. We've already had some traffic considerations, and now we're making this a primary entrance and exit.
Well,
Potentially, I'm just saying, does this eliminate the forethoughts on the food trucks being there in Parker Park?
I don't think that's even at the table right now.
Okay, I didn't think it was, but I'm just saying,
If it was.
if it's being considered, what's the alternative for the trucks? Because our trucks are immediate. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I could say one thing too, just about the Parker Park, and I'm sure they know, it is only accessing these lots. I mean, there may be, I can't imagine that somebody would use that as a bypass around there, because it is a long haul at 20 miles an hour to get down to 98. But there's only 63 or 64 lots that would be accessing that road. So the majority of the development is on the
Yeah, the Parker Park road going in, I really think that we had a rendering before, I don't know if we still have that, but maybe we ought to put that on the website, what it looks like. I mean, it's a very big improvement in widening of the road and everything. I mean, it looks very, very good. So,
There. So one thing I've thought about with that Parker Park crossing is when we have large events at Parker Park, we would consider blocking that entry exit during that time period to help with traffic in the park area and parking.
I think that's all things we can look at in the future, but we need to get to that point first. So nothing else on the table. We've really let that go quite a while, and it's probably, you can see there's a real interest from the citizens in the city, and they have a lot of questions. I believe you're gonna get probably a lot of questions from the city administrator that you guys could look at.
Yes,
Over the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can move on to the first thing on the agenda. This is there's an application for annexing Farmdale Sugar Sands. And Chris,
Mayor and council, I passed out the signed copies of the annexation application for this property. As most of y'all know, the mayor and I met with the representative for the owner of the property, as well as Mr. Sloan at his office last week, to discuss everything. The major concern about this property was the fact that they weren't going to, or they wanted to do some pre-sales on the lots and sell those off before the property was annexed in. Based on the conversation held last week, the representatives agreed now to annex everything in on the south side of Highway 98 at one time, and that would eliminate any concerns from the selling of the lots. And that's why he submitted the application for annexation now.
prior to that meeting with them, that Chris and I had, and the city administrator, or excuse me, the city attorney, I asked Chris to get with each council person, find out what questions they had that needed to be answered. And we covered water, we covered sewer, we covered a lot of different areas. But the only question that was brought up is can we fully annex? And they have agreed to fully annex. So with that said, we're looking for a motion to move forward with a notification letter to Bay County.
With the annexation process, yes, sir, Mayor.
Correct.
I do have concerns about the annexation because, on the commercial end of it, they wanna build a 95-room motel. And we're not really sure what the other, it's like 7 acres, we're not really sure what else is gonna go in there. So how can we tell how much storage and water they're gonna need when it's so tight with all these other developments that are coming in? So that's a big concern. I don't even know why the priority would be to build a 95-room motel when we already have 3 motels in our city that compete with 300 Airbnbs. So, why is that so important? We don't even know what the other commercial things are, so how can we say we got enough water, we got enough storage to cover it? We don't even know what they're building.
Chris, you want to address the sewer issue, or you want to go over that to what extent?
Well, I mean, it's a simple answer is our water and sewer calculations is based on square footage. We know they're gonna have 24,000 square footage of commercial space there. And so that's what it's based on. It doesn't matter what business it is. It could be a clothing store, it could be a restaurant, but it's based on square footage.
So we took the square footage of it, was it 12,000 square feet?
It was 24,000, they built it to a maximum of 24,000 square feet.
So I just want to add, I did look today with Chris, and I took Lynn's information on water usage, capacity, flows, sewer, and the same, and I broke it down. I actually figured out what the actual, our capacity remaining is, including everything that we have authorized development for. And with water, with what Farmdale is requesting is just under 22,000 gallons per day. And that leaves us, after all the current usage and programmed usage that's been authorized, 348,110 gallons per day out of the current usage of 405,000 gallons per day. And we have a total allotment for water of just over 1 million gallons, and we can go up to 1.5 per request. So based on what I've looked at and talked with Chris, we have plenty of water. The sewer, we have plenty of capacity also. It's less, and I think we'll be requesting additional capacity for sewer when we get into the St. Joe's phase 4 and 5 would be my guess, but we don't know that yet. Current sewer allotment is 473,000 gallons per day. We're currently using 172,000 gallons per day. So we have remaining capacity of 301,000 gallons per day. When you take in all the program uses, the vacant lots that aren't currently using, we have a remaining capacity of over 124,000 gallons per day. So with the just under 22,000 gallons per day that Farmdale has requested for sewer, that leaves us with 103,000 gallons per day remaining capacity. And so that's the short, I call it shortfall. That's the lower number, and that's the one that we can request additional capacity through Bay County when we get closer to that number talking with them.
We have to get to 70%.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and we're gonna have some questions from the public. Let's go ahead and open it up to the public. You wanna come up to where the podium?
Well, it's over, yeah,
Hate
it's
it?
over here.
There's the podium. Come on up. Please.
You're gonna make me,
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
I knew you'd make me have to stand up. You get two of this. All right, my question is, Shirley Miller, 6th Street. Linda's, Hamilton's question about, not knowing what they would do and so forth and so on. I'm under the impression that when we annexed property, the property is now part of Mexico Beach. And any directions we want to take, any rules, etc., just like I can't do certain things at my house in my yard because the city won't let me. Just like I can't take my dog across the street to the beach. So if we've annexed, and this is my main thing with annexing, if we've annexed this property, they have to follow our rules and do it our way. And, that's the biggest thing with annexing. I mean, whether we lose money or don't lose money has nothing to do, as far as I'm concerned, as it's our way.
Any other? Linda, come on, or, excuse me, come on, Lisa.
Lisa Logan, Mexico Beach. In the agreement, it said that the development would handle the infrastructure. Did I read that correctly? Okay. Infrastructure covers a great deal of things. For instance, are they going to hire a third party to do the garbage? Or are they going to utilize city garbage trucks and or crews to handle the garbage? So how are they gonna handle something like that? That's infrastructure.
You're asking one simple question, garbage?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I don't consider garbage infrastructure. I consider it a utility, but the city will take care of that, and it'll pay for itself the same way that right now the sanitation service pays for itself with all of our other citizens.
I personally would like to see a list of what they consider infrastructure. Second question is, what made y'all disregard the consensus of 9 months ago to have several more experts put together on this team, and suddenly that's not happening? So what has changed in the last 9 months that makes y'all think that you are qualified more than the experts that you originally wanted on the negotiation team?
I'd be more than glad to sit you down and discuss that with you individually as a citizen. I'm not interested in publicizing on your paper or your Facebook page, so we can sit down and I'll go over that with you.
We'd like to know.
Yes, yes, but I mean, she's, as a citizen, she's not asking as a newspaper holder.
All right, we'll set up a meeting. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? Yes, sir.
Tim gave numbers on the allocation on gallons per day on the sewage and all that. Are we on a daily application? We don't need to look at an average. We need to look at peak to see if we have enough capacity to have on the peak days during the vacation and tourist season. The average, throw those out the window.
We have all
See
that
where
data.
the peaks are.
We have all that data.
Is it covered?
Yes.
With our city manager, whatever that title is, at the special meeting, she said the sewage was questionable, whether we can have
Who said that, sir?
any surplus. Hello, yeah, that was at the special meeting this other night. That was one of her very concerned about that.
Mr. Glenn, we had a previous meeting a few months ago, I was in the audience, and Mr. Glenn gave us those figures, and yes, Mr. Hamilton, it was on a daily average is the way, am I right, Glenn? The way they look at our usage is what they're.
July 23.
Yeah.
July is 215,935 gallons a day, which is 65% of our daily capacity.
23.
Whenever we calculate these, looking into the future for planned projects, it's calculated at peak flow, the 250 gallons per day. That's considered peak flow. So, anyway,
Yeah, but it's on an average.
All right, anything else on the, yes, sir, come on up.
John Harrell, 43 First Street, with my fans, last house in Big County. My understanding was that tonight it was going to be laid out what the city's expenses will be in our upkeep as time goes on. I don't know if an additional water line has to be put in, what that expense is, who handles that expense, the lift stations,
if needed, I think it's called the chlorinization. Chlorinator, thank you very much. If those needed, the upkeep, has anyone projected out what it's gonna cost the city over, say, a 10-year period or a 20-year period? Has those figures been looked into? Because my understanding that all the costs were gonna be laid out tonight.
I don't know if you heard that from, but,
A council person.
all,
Does that help
everything,
or?
everything you're talking about,
Yes, sir.
this table is looked at. The city administrator has taken all these numbers. He's had them for a year because we've done phase one already. So we have all that data. We know what it's gonna take.
Then why, is it like a trade secret or you can't let us know?
We're just
or-
trying to do business. I mean.
We are, but
That's what you elected us to do, is do
that's
business.
right, but we wanna make sure, you know,
Can
you
I-
have oversight over him, we have oversight over y'all, and we just want the information. Making sure you're making the right decision. Whether you put it in there or not, we gotta know what the long-term effect is, and if it's gonna help the city, let's go. But if it's not, then let's think about it. We gotta do the right thing.
Everything behind that gate is gonna remain private, so the city bears no expense in maintenance or anything else. Everything will be installed and maintained by the developer, and then once the developer's out, by the HOA. And so they'll take care of the roads, the right of ways, sewer, water lines, lift stations. I mean, it's all gonna remain private.
Okay, so no additional water lines have to come from Bay County to service that or anything like that?
There was a question, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not trying to be rude about it, I'm just telling you, some of the questions are just, I mean, out of line. I mean, we're trying to do business as a city.
What's out of line with
We
my
move on.
question?
I didn't say that.
Well, I'm up
Some
here
of the
right now, so
questions
I feel
that
like
I've
keep
read
talking
that
to
have
me.
been out of
That's-
line. People are asking, does the developer pay for, fire hydrants? Have they ever not paid for fire
I don't
hydrants?
know.
Not
I'm
that
not
I
a
know,
developer.
the developer always takes care of that. Now, who takes care of it?
Yeah,
Can I-
you're supposed to answer our questions and not put us off, and that's what you're doing, and I'm sorry I talked out of turn, but I think it had to be said, you've been putting us off in details. It's like, you all know it, we don't.
Thank you.
All right, so John, I'm the guilty party that said I would lay this out.
You're not guilty of anything.
And I have laid it out, not to the 10-year, 20-year detail, but I sat down with Chris this morning and I laid it out. If the mayor will allow it, I have a backup slide that I'd like to show that covers
You
some
can
of
put
that.
up a slide, sure.
Can you put that up, Julie? So I did some very conservative cost estimates and income estimates. And what I figured with, what's the water, so the last slide in that, Julie? Yeah. When I looked at the 45 houses and a very minimal assessment of 500,000, that's a tax assessment, not what they're probably really valued at. We're looking at an income of 112,000 a year. If it's at 800,000, that's at a 5 mil. That's lower than we have now. You're looking at 168.5. I took a look at the hotel and I compared it with the Governor, which I was surprised how little they actually pay in taxes. But 25 to 30,000 possibly is what we would expect per year. The commercial space, I estimated a very low number of 10 million, and that's about 50,000. So you're looking at about $200,000 a year once everything is complete. Understanding that the houses will probably take a few years to be put in the hotel. So we won't see a big income the first couple of years, I would estimate, but we will. As Chris pointed out earlier though, developer is responsible for all the infrastructure costs. They're doing the water lines from our current water line that feeds into Sweetwater to the development. They're putting in all the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, when I say this. They're doing the water lines within the development, the houses and the hotel and the property. They're putting in the lift station per the city standards. There's already a chlorination station in that serves Sweetwater. That'll be used there. They're doing their own sidewalks, street lights, their own mowing, landscaping. That's all at their cost. It'll be a gated community. I don't know if they'll be allowed to use the beach and clubhouse at Sweetwater. That's gonna be up to their HOAs and that sort of thing. Or, excuse me, Sugar Sands, sorry. They'll be responsible for the fire hydrants. They'll either install the water meters or we'll charge them for that installation and hookup. So stormwater drainage and any parks, that's their responsibility. They've agreed to do the infrastructure. That's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir.
Correct.
Okay. And then when you start looking at the future costs, one thing that we provide today is the fire and emergency ambulance services as a mutual aid. And talking with the fire chief, we currently get a 1.38 mil for that. So I'm estimating we would get about 25,000 if they weren't annexed into the city. We would still be required to provide those services. So we'd be giving that up, but we still have the property tax for that service. So I'd tell you that's a wash, however you look at it. The public safety, the sheriff's department, they provide that to the county now and would, and that'll be part of our service. I don't see much of an increase, if any, in that. But as we develop to the west, you will see an increase in public safety requirements, I would estimate, with a corresponding return on ad valorem taxes.
Will that offset that? Because it costs us about $100,000 per deputy. So that's, you're eating up your first year right there.
Yeah.
With
Well,
one deputy.
I don't think we're gonna have one deputy for that 45 homes and that 7-acre spread for that. But there's gonna come a point where we're probably, and I'm talking about phase 3 and 4, 5 of St. Joe. There's gonna be a cost there. I don't know what it is at this point, but it looks to me, just logically, since they're paying for all the infrastructure and all the roads, and they'll be maintaining all that infrastructure down the road. There may be a few exceptions, like the water lines and sewer lines. If they're damaged or need repair down the road, I'm not sure if we pay for that. I've been told that maybe not, in the lift station we wouldn't repair, but I'm not clear on that. So I'm not saying there's no cost down the road, but I believe the ad valorem tax actually benefits us greatly. But here's what I think the bigger thing on this is. I think it's clear that we're not losing money, and we're giving money. But we could sell them water at a 25% increase and make money off that we want to do. I believe the whole point of this, though, is if we don't annex that small amount of property, we have no say what happens there down the road. That commercial strip, and I'm not saying it would happen, but it could have marijuana shops, sex shops. I mean, who knows? And that's, and I'd say that's unlikely. But if you want to be in control of what's around us, and I'm just talking about that few mile stretch to Tyndall, I believe it's in our best interest, both financially and for determining our own future, to annex that property.
And I think the citizens just want to be sure that they're not sure about a couple things.
Yeah.
We want to be sure.
And
we want to know, what's it going to cost us down the road, or is it going to pay for itself?
Well, we had something to compare that to. We had phase 1. We know that was not annexed in, and we're receiving 25% surcharge
Right.
on everything. So those numbers didn't add. We did all the numbers, the same numbers that we're talking about here. They're all here. This was done months ago.
Yeah, but we don't.
But you didn't tell.
We don't have to take care of this stuff as it breaks down. We're just selling the water and the sewage, correct? They're still responsible for all that in that first phase? Yes, sir.
Yes. No, but
So,
you had a lot of
Can
lift
we
station
just
costs
get a
out.
little bit, we got too much going on at one time. Bill, if you got a question, come on up. I just don't wanna get out of control here, guys. Bill, could you come on up to the podium if you got a question? We're at the table, but I'm willing to talk about this with everybody
Bill
else.
Allen. The lift station, you had crossed out as far as city maintenance.
I did, because talking with Chris, my understanding is my understanding after talking with Chris, we probably won't be paying for that maintenance, continued maintenance. But we will do it, I don't know that answer. Chris,
Are they gonna do it in perpetuity?
If it's private, it's gonna stay private, and then they'll maintain it.
In perpetuity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I really heard they wanted 1 year and for us to take it after that. That means they'd have it during the warranty period, and then we'd get it afterwards.
Never been discussed as far as I know. The 1 year.
All right, Tim.
that's all I have.
Anybody else with the table down?
I think Tim did enough talk.
Okay, we're at a point where, we're asking to move forward with this, so we need a motion to do that.
I motion that we move forward with the application for annexation of Farmville.
A second.
Can we take a vote, please?
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
No,
Mr. Wolf.
Yes. All right, moving on to consideration for approval of engineering proposal from Anchor. Chris, you gonna take that?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, this was presented at the last meeting, and due to some concerns about the amount of the original proposal, we asked Anchor to go back and reevaluate their costs. And you can see that now they have, listed $10,620 as their cost breakdown, and, with an additional $4,095 if we choose the construction administration and inspection services. So, the original quote was 26,000 and some change, so it's a pretty substantial cut.
And we've clarified that it's mandatory that we have this done. It isn't like buying it off of, buying a shed and just having them pull the permits and stuff. We have to have it
Yes, we
because of our insurance and stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
I think that was the question. All right, and open it to the public. Are there any questions on this? Good. At the table, any questions?
Yeah, I got just one quick one. Obviously the first 4 tasks are definitely needed. Task E, the construction and inspection services, which is optional. So it's under my understanding that this would go out for bid, we would hire a contractor, they would file for permits, so pretty much we won't be dabbling into that 4,000. They'll be inspected through the building department once the builder gets his application to build the building. I just wanna know if we're even gonna be.
Yeah, you can see how we do in the building inspections.
Yeah.
You know, based on the
So we
permits.
probably won't be using it for, unless we need to call her if something is questionable to bring her permit.
And EPCI does very specific inspections. This would be more of a general overview just to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, just from the plans perspective, once the plans get approved by the city. But if your city staff is out there and, you know, everything looks good and you don't have any problems, and you feel comfortable with that, that's fine with us. Or if you have problems, you can just call us and we can go against it as needed. So.
Any other questions on it? And this is a budget, would be a budget amendment also, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would be. Jason, you have any other questions?
No, it's coming from the sewer and water impact.
Yep.
Yeah, both engineering fees and the construction. But construction would be later, obviously, after we got the proposal.
Yeah, that's 75%, 24.
Motion before on it?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the engineering proposal from Anchor to do the design build services for the warehouse for the utility department, and also a budget amendment to approve that.
I'll second it.
Can you take a roll, please?
Okay, Ms. Hamilton,
Yes?
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Moving on to the city attorney, and I'm gonna ask that, just ask the city attorney just to be quiet and sit back and we'll go from there. Last week, we had or not last week, our last council meeting, we talked about the city attorney, and we also did an RFQ rating. On our RFQ rating, you can see what I put down here. Ms. Blankenship was, number one, Mr. Sloan was number two. There were some questionable things as far as timing, being able to be at the meeting. There was some, questions as far as, cost, hourly rate, a variety of different things. And I suggested to the council that I'd be able to sit down with both applicants and see if we can cut a better deal. Our prior attorney, we paid $60,000 a year. I believe it was $60,000 a year. I sat down with both Ms. Blankenship and Sloan, along with the city administrator, and I wrote down what we have here is where we got to, okay? What I asked them to do is make sure to attend 2 council meetings and 1 planning and zoning meeting. And then give me a retainer fee to do that. Ms. Blankenship agreed to $1,500. Mr. Sloan agreed to $2,500 to cover those meetings. Ms. Blankenship dropped her hourly rate to $300. Mrs. Sloan had a $300 rate. One of the things that Ms. Blankenship had an issue with was she couldn't make the meeting, and that was obviously an issue. So in talking with her, we talked about maybe swapping the meetings, the first meeting of the month being at 6 p.m. and the last being at 9 a.m. She also wants to move, or ask, could we move the P&Z meeting to Tuesdays, the first Tuesday? She had some suggestions on that were interesting about covering the P&Z meeting, i.e. not attending it and reviewing the agenda and giving her input prior to the meeting. And she also suggested maybe a Zoom. I talked to her about, when I said that to her, I said, well, we're demanding you to be there for 3 meetings, 2 or 3, can you be there? Yes. If we choose as a council to have her do Zoom or something else, then would we deduct money off that $1,500? Possibility. If she doesn't attend the meeting, absolutely. Both agreed to not charge for any drive time to get into meetings. Mr. Sloan asked for $2,500 to cover those 3 meetings, but he only wants to do it for 3 months and then review it, because he thinks it would be better for the city to do it at $300 an hour. So that was a lot of information for 2 interviews. So I'm looking for the council's input based on that.
I got a question. Maybe I'm not reading this right, but he's told a retainer is just a starting point.
Correct.
You said she's willing to do 3 meetings for $1,500. I think she means that that's only 5 hours. If it goes over that,
I didn't talk to him about hours. I told him that I've seen meetings at 2 hours. I've seen meetings at 4 hours. So I just asked
I
for
must
everything.
need some legal, because a retainer I would say is a start. If they go over that, they're still due their.
Then they go to their hourly rate, which is $300 an hour for both of them.
Am I missing something?
Not my request my request along with city administrators, when we met with them, is to make sure to give us a retainer that would cover 3 meetings. 2 council meetings, 1 planning and zoning meeting.
So you're just telling me for $1,500, she's saying she will be at 2 meetings and 1
Council meeting.
P and Z.
And the
No
same,
matter how many hours.
correct, same thing with Mr. Sloan. Tim, any questions?
No, I understand.
Ms. Hamilton?
I'm not in agreement with changing our meeting time for her. You know, we've had a certain standard of what we're doing, and I don't agree to change that for her. And also, I know when we did the score sheet, the scores for the 2 candidates were exactly the same except for the financial one. And she did score like that 10 points higher, but it was really contradictory because at that time she was charging more. So to me, the score sheets are not a good measure because it wasn't really valid. Mr. Sloan has been here already. He's proven himself to be a very more than adequate attorney. He represents a city of Parker that's comparable to our city. I think Ms. Blankenship represents smaller communities. I just feel like Mr. Sloan is a better fit for the job.
I have one more quick question on the contractual side. It's still gonna be kind of the same contract wording that we have with Clint as far as they can be terminated at the discretion
Right, it
of
would
the
be-
council, and then, you know,
Correct.
something comes back.
30 or 60 days.
Yeah, with adequate
Notice from both parties.
From both.
The decision of not changing to the first meeting to 6 o'clock versus 9 o'clock, and the second meeting from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, just swapping them, could cost the city $12,000 a year. Just looking at that number. I mean, just keep that in mind.
Based on what, why would it cost?
Well, if we went with Mr. Sloan, because we weren't willing to change those hours, it'd be 2,500 retainer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
Well, no, I already passed it up, but I'm in agreement with Ms. Hamilton. I really don't think we should change our meeting schedule P and Z for another attorney. I scored her pretty high, but given this, I'm more in favor of going with Mr. Sloan this time.
That's why I met with him, that's why you have the information, you need to make a decision. The only thing with Mr. Sloan, we're gonna be meeting with him again in 3 months.
May I say something there, or should I still?
My problem is, I think you're gonna tell me that, don't worry about 3 months, leave it at 25
No,
months.
no, that wouldn't, but I was just gonna clarify why the 3 months was to do it for the benefit of the city, that in 3 months' time, if you all are having less hourly meetings than the $2,500 would equate to, my suggestion that I made up front would still apply, that it should be just straight hourly, and it will save you money. But
Jason?
I asked my question. I mean, we've had pretty good representation so far with Mr. Sloan. I think he's stepped up. And 3 months, I think either one, I mean, that's a good evaluation period, no matter who.
Jerry, anything?
No.
Pardon?
No.
Ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we hire Mr. Tim Sloan for the city attorney.
I'll second.
Can we take a roll, please?
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Well, of course.
Mayor Wolf.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the contractor agreement between Indian Town and Empire Pipe. Meters.
Yes, purchase the water meters, Mayor. The, Mayor and Council, I brought up the fact that we need to buy approximately 400 water meters at the last city council meeting. There was an estimate inside your packet of information, which was typed out by me based on our discussions with the Empire Pipe. The total was $116,310. However, over the weekend, the representative from Empire Pipe contacted me via email and said that he had included some software and didn't realize that it was free if we purchased the meters. And I passed out a copy of that quote from Empire Pipe tonight. So that lowers the price by $8,060 to a total of $108,250. Again, this project's needed because right now our utility department is having to reread approximately 350 meters every month. And that's because those meters are not functioning properly, which means we're not probably charging properly. And so we're losing money on the situation. These meters are upgraded meters. Even though they're less expensive than the meters we have been purchasing, they will allow us in the future to go to a fixed base system to where we won't even have to send personnel out to read the meters once we get everything, transferred over. And that'll be something that we discuss as part of the budget process for next year. But at this time, we just need to replace the meters and start working on that. And that's why we need to purchase these, and I'm seeking council approval to purchase this many tonight.
What's the turnover on that, time-wise, to get that done, Chris? I mean, is it something 6 months, 8 months?
Well, hopefully it won't take that long. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, right now the guys are going out and as they do the rereads, they're changing out some of the meters. The problem is that there was a shortage on the meters and we couldn't get in the meters that we had been using. And, it just makes sense to go ahead and upgrade and buy a bulk amount. And the contract that you have there is from, the Village of Indian Town. That's a contract where they advertise for this project. We're gonna piggyback on that, which allowed us to get a lower price of what they had originally quoted us, and it also allows us to not have to go out for bids ourselves.
But we're literally doing a read and reread. We're going out and rereading them.
Yeah, right now, the way that they read the meters, they have a laptop in their vehicle, and they drive around town, and the meter readings on the laptop. But then they're having to go back out and manually reread approximately 350 every month because they're not working properly.
It's gotta cost some money.
It costs a lot of money and time and fuel driving around. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
All right, any input from the citizens?
These are remote read from the truck to the meter.
They will function the remote read from the truck, but in the future we'll install an antenna at City Hall, and it will allow them to feed directly into City Hall. And it also has some other benefits for the citizens that they can use to monitor their own account. I'm sorry?
Check valves on the meter, that will prevent.
Oh yeah, everything just like we do now.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, just to be clear, did I hear at the last city council meeting that this should prevent residents who, like, the $700 water bill because their meter broke the day after the reading and they didn't realize for 30 days that water was flowing?
Correct. Once we get the antenna installed at City Hall, it'll send the readings to City Hall every 12 hours. So at the very most, if they have a leak, it'll run for 12 hours before we're aware of it, to where now it can be 30 days.
Okay, at the table, any questions?
Chris, if you ordered these tomorrow, how quick are we gonna receive them?
I haven't asked him, but now I know our guys have already started ordering some just for the new installations that we're seeing on St. Joe property, so they do have them in stock, unlike the previous ones we couldn't.
So we're already phasing in this as we're ordering.
Yeah, like I said, because they currently work with the meters that we're using, but, and when we don't have any choice, we have to have meters for these new places being built.
We got someplace to put them that they're not gonna be sitting outside.
We've got.
Hopefully under the ground, 350.
We're gonna find a place for them, in the sheds or in the public works building here. We'll make sure they're not setting out in the weather.
We're out there, making,
Put 'em in-
stainless steel go away, it's bad.
We'll put them in Sherry's old office in City Hall if we need to.
Well, you lowered the price by $8,000, you think we ought to wait maybe another month, see if we lower it? We'll take a motion at the table.
Quick question. This is another budget amendment, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When do you think the antenna will be installed, Chris?
We'll do that first next budget year.
Okay, so we'll wait till next year.
Right. Okay, we'll just continue to redesign the vehicle like we do now.
Yeah, this last question, you gave us several numbers here, but the bigger number is for everything. You know, I'm looking at a $653,000.
That's Indian Town. That's
That's
part of-
that's okay. I'm
That's
sorry.
part of their contract, what they.
Excuse me. Let me read my, yeah. Yeah, no, I was just saying, we're gonna have to get the rest of them on board.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of our meters and, you know.
And we can phase those things over time.
Anything else on the table, we guys ask for a motion, move forward?
You need to have a price in there.
That'd be a good idea.
No problem.
So you're gonna need to have a not to exceed price and then also a budget amendment to provide.
Go ahead. I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of 400 water meters for the price of $108,250. And we make a budget amendment to cover that cost.
Did you need to, not to exceed?
Not to exceed 108,250.
Well,
Now, this is the new.
that's the new
Well, I
number.
guess you had, Chris, do we, yeah.
Okay.
We need to approve 116.
108,
108,250 is what he brought us. Yeah, I know I missed the last one.
I recommend you repeat that again, Jason, just to be clear.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of 400 water meters at the price of $108,250, not to exceed $108,250. And we make a budget amendment.
And that includes the software.
So they can be read by the vehicle driving around.
Tammy, you got that?
I hope so.
Take it. Let's take a roll on that, please.
Seconded, okay. Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Linderman?
Yes.
Mayor Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mayor and council, also just for the benefit of the citizens here and those watching on Facebook, that money will be coming from the water capital replacement fund, which is money we've had on hand for over 10 years, so, it's not gonna cause your rates or anything to go up.
Moving on to consideration of purchase of upgraded, data flow, lift station alarm system that we had a problem with.
Yes, Mayor and council, again, this was mentioned at the last meeting. As everyone's aware, we recently had a major malfunction at MX1, which is the city's main lift station down on Canal Parkway. It allowed the lift station to overflow. Some of the sewage got into the canal waters, and it didn't notify us that there was a problem. No alarm went off. So got to researching it, and we have several lift stations where the alarm systems either don't work or don't communicate with each other, and so we're not getting notified as we should whenever there's a problem there. Much like the water meters that we just discussed, this is an upgraded system. It allows our guys to control the pumps and the lift stations from their home, from their phone, if there is a problem, and that way, hopefully it won't overflow until they get here and can take care of the issue. But you have the estimate there on what we're looking at spending. This will be $127,170, and you can see the list. The pump controller, 24 pumps, controller with the cell phone service, the antennas, and then a couple of spares to give us that 127,170.
Because it's funded through.
This would be funded through the sewer capital replacement fund, which is again money we have on hand and will affect the the citizens with a rate increase.
Don't need budget around that.
It will be a budget amendment, yes, sir.
All right, open to the public, any questions on the lift station alarm system? Bring it to the table, any questions here?
I don't have any questions, but obviously, I think we need to proceed with this. We don't wanna get a DEP fine for,
Contaminants,
yeah.
It's very high, very high.
we were close. All right, I look for a motion for it.
So I make a motion that we purchase the upgraded data flow lift station alarm systems not to exceed $128,000 and as a budget amendment.
You like, you ran it out. No. I'll second. Just a second, take a roll, please.
Okay, Mr. Linderman,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mayor Wolf.
Moving on to, consideration of appraisal on, 109D South 39th Street,
South 37th Street.
37th, I'm sorry.
Mayor and Council, I brought up, 3 or 4 months ago about the idea of purchasing some of the property on South 37th Street where the pier was located. And, we mailed out letters at that time to all the property owners on the street. Several property owners have contacted me back, either wishing to sell or wishing to partner with the city in a joint, residential, commercial development there on the street in the future. This lady contacted me this past week. Her property adjoins the current city property that we own there. And just looking at this time to get it appraised so we can see what the value is. The prices fluctuate greatly down there for those properties that are listed for sale and also what is sold in the recent past. So just looking to get this appraised and try to get an idea of what we're looking at cost-wise.
It is obviously gonna be something long-term, and we talked about this and going out and sending out a letter to see if we could see if any people wanted to sell. Lucky enough, one's right adjacent, that's pretty good. Are there any comments from the audience? Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
Could you
Come on
point
up. Come on
out,
up, please. Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa Logan, could you please point out which ones are the city's properties?
All of these in black.
The thick black.
Here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
There's
I
four
just
of
said
them.
And then the red is.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Good, come on up,
John Harrell, 131st Street. What are we gonna use this property for? What's the purpose?
Well, I envision a joint commercial residential area in the future. South 30th Street could be a very nice, small, focal point for our city as far as the commercial area. Right now, we hear complaints that there's not enough commercial. The commercial that was here was turned into residential. And so this would just give us something adjacent to the pier where people could go, they could eat, they could shop. We could create some additional parking there as part of the process. And, just
So when
like I
you
said,
say commercial, you mean like restaurants?
restaurants,
shops,
retail.
And the city retains ownership?
Yeah.
So, the rental business, leasing business.
Yes.
Well, we've talked about long-term stuff, okay, rather than something that's gonna happen next year or the year after. This could be something in 10 years, it could be something in 5 years, we could own the whole street in 10 years.
Oh, we'll get strapped.
So
and we'll
what's the
have to sell
plan
it.
to do?
Right.
What do you wanna do with it?
You can't say that.
But
We get another hurricane, don't tell us we can't get strapped. Yeah.
Land to be cheaper at that point.
Probably be beachfront.
So that's my question. Y'all know how I
Where are we
stand on
going?
that.
Well, we're also researching grants and stuff to allow us to potentially acquire some property and maybe even do some work building some spec buildings there to try to recruit commercial business in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Chris,
At the table? Yeah.
what are the average sizes of these lots?
The small lot, like what we're talking about having appraised, is 0.04 acres.
Aren't they 16 by 100?
16.
One
and a half.
Roughly 16 by 100. And then this one probably double that.
So in your line, Chris, how many of these lots do you think we would have to obtain to feasibly go with your vision?
I mean, me personally, I think the city should acquire all the vacant lots on South 37th Street
If they're available.
if they're available. But I think it's you're gonna have some people who are willing to sell, like what we're seeing now, and there's also 2 other lots on the same side of the street, but closer to 98 that are for sale, one on the opposite side. And right now, it's much easier dealing with people who are willing to sell. I've had several people also contact me, like I said, wanting to partner with the city, and that's something that we can discuss in the future as far as, how to do that. I would expect to bring that up at the budget process here in a couple months.
And why do you think people did not rebuild on that strip of land?
Personally, I think it's because they couldn't come into agreement with their neighbors.
Council, I do want to just share that there is a requirement under section 166.045 of the Florida statutes concerning proposed purchase of real property, so I'll work with Chris on that. And it talks about the appraisal process and perhaps option contracts and how the appraisals may be exempt from the sunshine law.
What number was that?
166.045.
Bob, have a few things. I've talked to Chris a little bit about this. I think the first is, I believe things should be kept in private, as far as development, things like that. I don't know about the city going down this road. If we were to go down this road, I think there needs to be some more studies on it as far as what we can actually do before we start purchasing. Looking at our LDR, just a few things talking about parking, because Pier Road parking, we're already looking, we talked at the last meeting about extending the pier. That's one of our last public parking lanes there. And if we're when the pier's rebuilt, and if I just think it's, we're not gonna be able to use any of that for this. So then I look into it and I look into LDR, and most of our parking requirements are like 1 for every 300 square feet. So, let's just take one little piece and say we're gonna put a 900 square foot building on the bottom and some apartment on top. So it's a mixed use is what you're kind of.
Some of it will be, yes.
So 900 square feet, that's 3 spots. You gotta have at least 1 to 2 for something up above. So, I look at that and that's 5 spots right there. And so that's one of my concerns. I'd like to do a little more studying. And then I'm looking at the what's there, and take the side of the road that we own property on. That was grant money. We got those. We got 4 lots. Well, there's 18 lots over there, so that leaves 14 lots. At a minimum, I would think they're 175 each, is my looking at it. The ones we bought before were 150 each, is what we paid. And I think as you get closer to the pier and the beach, we're going to be, that price is going to be elevated. So, 14 lots at 175, I think it did it. I think it was like 2.4 million. We're not talking about, it's a big project. And I'd like to know more about the future before we spend money on appraisals and things like that. And where the money's coming from, if we can do that. And as far as the development side of it, what can we really put there?
I understand your concerns. My problem is we're fighting against time. Or not my problem, my concern is that we're fighting against time. Because once those lots start selling to other people, if they do develop them, then, it's gonna ruin the chance of the city of doing anything there unless we start talking about, taking more drastic action than buying it from people who willingly.
And we do have other homeowners, on the other side, we've got 2 units built and another one being built, so, we have to kind of put all that into
And that side of the road would be the perfect side for the mixed use part, to where the east side of South 37th Street would be strictly commercial.
I just know we need to look, you know, when you start thinking about development, you know, between the parking, the stormwater, just all kind of stuff, it just shrinks fast. You know, it's just my.
And maybe as a council, we need to define better to, you know, it seems like a good deal to me in that it's adjacent. You're not dealing with a 2 over or 3 over, and then you trap yourself into somebody in between. So,
So you're saying, I mean, we got this one that's available, I guess the process is to get an appraisal. If it's good, if we're happy with it, then where are we gonna take the money from?
Prior year savings.
From where?
Prior year savings,
That's where it's coming.
basically just the money we have saved in the bank account.
So,
Yes, sir.
so on one hand, I understand the discussion we've had in the past about making that a commercial area. I think that was in the original, one of the city studies, showing that area as a commercial kind of area. I mean, it would be nice to have an area that we could have small restaurants or shops, but I'm not sure the parking will accommodate it. What does it cost for an appraisal?
$5,000-$6,000.
Okay. No.
no.
I mean, that's another thing I was gonna bring up. We need to, before we approve, we need to know what this appraisal is gonna cost. I thought 1,200 or so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where it goes. I mean, you know, I've seen bathrooms at $500,000.
The other thing that, the other thing that,
I'm sorry.
as I look at this, the other thing is I look at this, if we add that parcel, we're still at 0.27 of an acre. That's hardly anything. I mean, I did the acreage division here, everything we got, so it's not very big. I just worry, I understand Chris's desire to do this fairly quickly, to take advantage of this. Are we gonna be able to get all that property? Are we gonna be able to afford it? And then are we gonna get into the rental business of property? I'm not sure I'm not ready to go there yet.
And look, you have enough skepticism here that we need to get answered some questions, so I would suggest we table the item and decide what we wanna do. What we wanna do long-term. Let's put a plan to it. That's what I would suggest.
Well, and I think the first thing is to find out, I would go ahead and get what the appraisal's gonna cost. We should be able to get that. I mean, that's number one.
We'll probably just find out what they've sold for in the past.
Well,
Well,
the
yeah.
highest one, the most recent sale in there for the highest amount is $170,000.
Yeah, it's in that range.
I owned one there that's 16 by whatever for 4 years ago, and like 75,000. They're probably double that now.
And like I said, the city paid, I think it was just over 150 for the last 4 each.
Well,
Just
on this
somebody-
I don't think it's that. I think we got a $500,000 grant and bought 4 lots. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't what you're saying, but I'm just saying that I didn't.
Yeah, I was just, well, I'd have to go back to each property. There was one property that was 150, I guess, before
But we didn't get but a $500,000.
Look, we're not gonna get through this tonight, so why don't we table this? I may want to suggest we table this item and move on from it and gather some more information, talk to the city administrator during the week, and maybe we'll drop another plan in the next 2 weeks.
Chris's suggestion about possible grant money, if we could start pursuing that.
We are, and we're reaching out right now, to talk to people on whether it'd be better just to request the money for purchasing the land, or if it would be better to request enough money to purchase the land and build a couple of buildings initially. So I mean, we're shaking our cut out there begging right now.
We're gonna be talking about grants here at the end anyways.
Can I ask one question on the grants? Do you mind, the last 4 that we bought, I remember when that kind of went down, we were gonna use that for restrooms?
I mean, I wasn't here, I was told it was gonna be a bait shop. you know,
For the
something.
four lots.
Yes, sir.
It was gonna, we was gonna rent it, or at least just, we wasn't gonna build a building, now, we wasn't getting into retail side, back when we got it.
Okay.
We was just gonna lease the land and let them build a building or something, now, we wasn't gonna get into the building, I hadn't heard that yet. You don't think we need to get it appraised? I mean, I can't be that much money, can it?
Well, we don't even, well, I guess, let's table it till 2 weeks, we ask that question, have it, and then answer it.
Yeah.
Motion to do table it.
So Chris, would you be the one gathering further information?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has any questions, please ask me, ask me. If we need to decide what we're gonna do with South 37th Street, either we need to have a long-term plan on acquiring more property and doing something commercial, or, it doesn't make much sense to hold on to the land we've got down there already.
That's true. That's true.
We need to go one way or the other.
It's prime land to be owned by the city right there on 37th Street.
So make a motion, we table this to the next council meeting in 2 weeks, and that Chris, minimum get a external appraisal cost and estimate on the appraisal.
Possibly funds for grant to be able to pay it. Would you wanna consider that, and we need to think of how we may possibly pay
I
for it?
wouldn't add that to the motion, just table it for now, and have Chris get a cost estimate on the appraisal, and then we can work with Chris individually and any other suggestions. But, so my motion is just to table on next council meeting with Chris coming back with the appraisal. estimate.
Have a second on it?
I'll second it.
Take a roll, please.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Wolf?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mr. Linderman?
Yes.
Proceed in 2 weeks with the numbers. All right, we're gonna move on to, discussion regarding grants. Tim is, Mr. Lindeman, sorry. Mr. Lindeman is, taking care of our grants in the past, and I think he's getting to a point where he's gonna be handing it off, and doing some training.
So, I'll just clarify that. I've taken care of a few grants. There have been many done by our contractors for this, so I don't want to be accused of taking credit for stuff I haven't done. But, I'm kind of like, I'd like to get out of the grant business, and I've agreed to train, 2 city personnel, and I think actually Eric is asked to also be part of this. So, that's one part of this. But what I want to bring to the council tonight is, in the past, when we got into a budget year, it's been difficult to determine what grants, if any, we want to go after, the funding that we want to budget for. So what I'm recommending is, there are a couple of grants that are out there that I would recommend we look at as we get into the budget process, and that's the Urban Community Forestry Grant. And I would recommend that we consider, this is just consideration of vote required tonight, up to $75,000 for trees, and the areas I would look at are the 2 ends of under the Palms Park that have no trees, very little vegetation, and for Parker Park possibly. Am I out of time?
Not me.
The other grant is the Coastal Partnership Initiative, which is what we got the kayak dock from, and we could get up to 60,000 in that, and I would recommend that we set that aside. And what I'm thinking of for that grant is when we do the beach renovation, there's going to be a requirement to modify some of the walkovers or all the walkovers, and maybe do some beach fencing, and that grant would be applicable for that type of situation. In Alora's visioning and planning, she gave us a list of possible grants. You can take a look at those. I would be interested in looking for a grant to put a sidewalk on 15th Street, and maybe some ADA improvements in the sidewalks that we have, because we're not very ADA compliant in a lot of areas here. And there are grants that address that. And the other grant that I recommend, and there's no matching, is the planning grant that we got this year. I would recommend we apply for it again to do phase 2, to do all the things that we talked about, or we talked about with what the product we got, and then going for the next step. And then the last thing I want to bring up is every year, it seems like a week or two before the Florida State Appropriations Grant requests are due, we're fumbling around trying to figure out what we want. I suggest we start thinking about that now and come up with the things that are a priority and build our story now. And I just want to close with, I think our story, we've kind of bled the Hurricane Michael. I mean, it's been 5 years, but what we say now is, the past 5 years we have focused on recovery, rebuilding, cleanup. Now we're to the point where we want to do improvements. There's things that we want, but we haven't had the chance to do or the funding to do because Hurricane Michael pretty much devastated our budget. So, and I think that would work for some of the things we're looking at. And again, January, and I think Eric and was it Vanessa, I think they're perfectly capable. Some of these grants I've written before, and I think we just dust them off and rewrite them. So it's just a recommendation to the council, and I think you need to start looking at what you think the priorities are, and if you have grants in mind, and that we make that part of our budget, and then we go after them.
And keeping in mind that, there's gonna be a matching fee for a lot of these going forward. There used to be a lot of them that were 100%, but some of them are getting down to that 70, even 75%. So
Most are 50%, and there are limitations. You can't use federal money as part of your matching. Now, I will tell you that there are some, I'll call them tricks for lack of a better word. There's in-kind that counts as matching. So if we put labor into it with like Public Works or some things, we're beating Tommy to death already probably. But if there are things we can do that are in-kind, and some of the grants like the Urban Forestry Tree Grant, the in-kind can be, we don't have to buy trees, we could buy irrigation, we could buy shrubs. So as you look at these grants, you see those types of things that you can take advantage of.
any questions or anything for? Good job, thank you, Tim. Go ahead and move on to citizens' comments. I'm gonna ask you to go to the podium if you would.
Gary Dodds, Middle Boulevard. Tonight it's considering under the palms park. Yesterday we had some vandalism there. Cops came twice. Just for the fire extinguisher box apart, just started the fire extinguisher. And kind of made a mess of everything. Leaving garbage everywhere. My suggestion is if we can get a camera put up down there, even the cops even suggested us put a camera to be able to watch it because it's too nice a park to get vandalized. I mean, I live right behind it, and I've had to go out there and wait a minute, time out. There's like maybe 10 kids. They just went totally berserk. You want to go out and do what their family didn't do is beat their butts. But cameras are some way to be able to monitor what goes on. Either put some signs up in front, just something to let these kids know. We've got too much out there, it looks too good, just turn into pigsty. So that was my comment for that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Shirley Miller, 6th Street. My comment goes back to the Pier Park, that we call it. Can you not declare that as a council the same way that you did over there without Kathy? We were having problems with how much parking we had, so we declared it a shopping center. And if we're going to be putting shopping and such like that on there, hopefully at Pier Park, and you're worried about how much parking you have, no matter how many places you put in, it's gonna get filled up at times. So can you not just declare that a shopping center also with a prettier name or something? That would be up to you all.
Thank you. Lisa Logan.
Lisa Logan, I would please encourage y'all to put on the next agenda the issue of ATVs on city streets. The deadline is fast approaching.
Hey, you good? Comment on that back there? I think we already got some word.
It actually died in the Senate in physical policy. So we don't have to worry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, come on up.
All right, last time, I swear. John Harrell, 43 First Street. I know we're trying to do things and fire property, stuff like that, but I think what the council needs to do, keep in mind, we need to take care of sewage lines, and we need to take care of water lines. These are needs, not wants. We have old lines that are busting. Whatever money we're spending for stuff, we need to look at that. They need to be replaced. Of course, Mr. Glenn's the expert on that, but there's lines that have busted. We don't know if a sewage line busts till it's too late. It's backing up in somebody's house. We do have some lines that are in desperate need. And then my last, I guess it's my, I won't call it a pet peeve. What's going on with the boom truck? We're at 8 months. 8 months. I haven't heard anything about the boom truck. We put money in the budget for it. And if we don't get a boom truck, what happens to that money? Are you gonna use it to buy property, or are you gonna? But I thought when we passed the budget, or the council did, with that money to be directed at that. So is there any update, or?
I thought I'd mentioned it before, but,
Well, I was out of town last meeting, so
Well, it
I
wasn't
apologize
last
if you did.
You're the only one I ever asked about it, so it's the last time you asked this question. The money put in the budget for the boom truck is money that can't be used for a boom truck. It was impact fee money. It can't be used to purchase a boom truck. Impact fee money can only be used to buy emergency vehicles.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one? The impact money can only be used for emergency vehicles.
And school buses. Emergency
Okay,
vehicles like fire trucks,
Even
ambulances.
though the city's been impacted by a flood, the city's been impacted by.
What type of impact money is it?
Well, if it's for a boom truck, it'd be sewer.
Is that where it came out of? Where did it get from?
Yeah, I mean, it was sewer. Yeah.
But we're adding all this property. That's impacted us. We've never had a boom truck before. I'd say that, but I don't know the law. You might be able to help us with that.
You're just telling me you got allotted from the wrong.
So that's why I'm asking the question. And I know I'm not the only one asking.
We've already got.
I'm the only one to speak up.
We've already got quotes on another boom truck for next year, so to work into next year's budget.
But we won't be able to use the impact fees is what you're saying. That
Correct.
was originally budgeted for that.
Correct.
Okay, I thought besides that, we had budgeted for it because we had a long conversation at the council meeting about that. Was that your understanding too, or?
Not,
we were actually
not the
putting-
fund where it's coming through, I guess we.
Okay.
Sort of in the wrong place.
So that's why we need more clarification for us idiots that sit out here in the peanut galleries. We just want to know, that's all. We're not trying to bust anybody's rear end. I'm done.
One other point, just based on what John was asking right then, is any money used to acquire land, like what we're talking about on South 37th Street, wouldn't come from the water or the sewer fund. Water and sewer funds water and sewer, so the water lines and sewer lines you're concerned about.
I am.
Yeah, well, that's not gonna come from the same pot of money that any kind of land acquisition would come from.
I know, but you guys should plan and concentrate on that.
Yes, thank you. Anything else? Citizens, comments? Okay. Okay, move to the table, mayor comments. I got a couple things that I'll just go over. 7th Street in Maryland, data coming soon. We've collected some data on speeding down there, or speeds. Lieutenant, you got something to add to that, maybe wise?
The Bay County, roads and bridges and stuff, we're supposed to be sending somebody over Friday, I don't know if they made it or not, but they're supposed to come and download the information from the 7th Street signs, so we can get some idea of what statistic-wise speeds and, you know, as averages on those coming down through their time of day.
So we should see that in the next,
Should see it next week or so.
okay.
It'll be available for the next meeting.
All right, good deal, thank you. Couple things, met with some St. Joe people just to kind of introduce myself and with the city administrator and talk to them about a couple of things. Asked them about the parking lot on the south side, on the Avenue, what's going on with it. Got a drawing on it, they're working on it, 61 spaces. Also, as a little bonus, we talked about access underneath 98, some type of walkway or something. They're drawing it up and looking at it, so you could see that coming. Probably be meeting with them on a quarterly basis, so if county councilmen or anything have any input or citizens, send it to Chris, and we'll get that information to him. We're all right, Chris, with the grocery store thing.
I mean, if you want to mention it, that's fine. That's fine.
We also talked to some grocery store owners, okay, and there's a possibility in the next 30 days, we're gonna see something at planning and zoning. And that's pretty much all the information I can say right now. We'll go from there. It should be 30 days. Yeah, that's that information. Any council remarks? Excuse me.
I have a couple, going back to Mr. Cox's concern. I was also out there today. It appears that the children that were out there are local children, and that they also, you know, they gave the officer a difficult time. He went out there the first time and kind of recommended them for just doing a lot of junk there, and then later on they came back and some local kids, and the fire extinguisher, they had to break the glass, and then they took the extinguisher out and sprayed it at other children. So, I mean, these are local kids, they're not gonna go home after this week, they're gonna be here, school's just getting out, and, you know, if this is what they think is gonna be their local hangout, I think the suggestion of putting a camera up like now would be a good thing to protect that park and the people that are around here as well. I mean, that was a serious offense and very brazen for children that appear to be 13 to 14 years old. That's, you know, that's just pretty serious stuff. And, you know, we worked so hard to get that park to look as nice as it is, and we have the picnic tables. They had moved some of the picnic tables around, and they just, you know, had no respect for it at all. But Officer Henderson recommended that we possibly put the camera, and I'm not gonna say where he said put it up, because that would go that way, but I think a camera as soon as possible. And what would it take to make that happen? Would we have to make a motion?
Chris, I don't think that's a good deal to make it happen, is it?
Well, it's not a big deal to make it happen. We just need to research the best way possible of doing it. You know, whether we want to have a cell connected camera or some other type of camera, like a trail camera or something, but we'll have to see what's best for that area, because it's kind of out in the middle. And if we just want to cover the pavilion, we'll cover the whole park. So
Can you take that task and hand it to somebody at the city and maybe next week or 2 weeks from now, bring that to say what we're gonna do?
yeah, we'll do research.
We got too much investment.
And then Lieutenant Williams, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, ma'am, that's a good idea, and we're still also investigating and trying to identify the kids that were involved in it and everything else. But on the other hand, we don't have any proof that they were the ones that did it. You know, visual proof of it.
All right, we'll move on from there and get your camera so you can see who it is.
Also, I was wondering about the road repairs after the fiber optic installation. There were a lot of more lines that broke, and there's a lot of roads that are just a mess, that need to be repaired. I think we were promised possibly that was it the people from fiber optic, it was gonna they were gonna kind of come in and repair those roads, or who's gonna do that?
Well, we're gonna do this whenever, the city council budgeted to pave Hatley Drive. And so we traded the fiber optic company, the road repairs and for some boring that they've done for us over in Colorado. And so, the paving company should be out here within the next 2 weeks to start doing all the paving work that we've asked them to do.
Okay, so do they have a list of all the roads that need to be repaired, or how will they know about that?
Tommy's gone out and made a list of everything, because, I mean, not everything is from the fiber optic company, that's, things that we're responsible for, just to build up over time. And, but Tommy's made a list of everything in the city as far as what needs to be paved, and so that's gonna all be taken care of, like I said, when they come out.
Anything else from the council?
I got 2 things.
Yes.
So the project update, is that, when is it we normally do that?
We normally do that tonight, but because of having all the contractors here this month, I didn't put it on the agenda because it's worth me repeating.
So I came up with a template that I gave to Chris. I would recommend you all look at it and see if it's something you agree with. It might be too elaborate for these type of meetings, but I could build it so he can do a council update, list suspenses and milestones under that project, but who's responsible for the project. And I also included like a status color, green, yellow, and red, for a quick browse. But please take a look at it. If you like it, and like I said, we go with it. If not, let's modify it and come up with something that we're happy with. And then the last thing I have is, it's really for those that are online and folks in the council. I added a phone line to my phone for you guys to call me. Mostly I've gotten calls from bill collectors and et cetera. I think the guy who had the number before probably bankrupt. But I'm gonna give you the number. It's on the website. Please call me if you just want to talk. A few people have taken advantage of that. Sometimes it's easier to just talk and get an email, but whatever. I'm not saying I'm gonna have the answer, I'm gonna make you happy, but I do wanna hear from you what your thoughts are. That phone number is 850-227-6151. Give me a call, text me, whatever.
Well, if you got something, we get the sniper tournament starts Saturday morning. Some of the council will help me at 4 o'clock in the morning. Park cars and how you told you was a sniper girl. We need all the help we get at 4 o'clock in the morning, and Sandy's gonna be there at 3:30. So one of us, you gonna make it.
I'm just gonna sleep in the, cause he's gonna clean out that nice little.
Anyway, with this sniper season, there's gonna be a big crowd here. We park over 100-something boats and things.
Saturday.
I'm expecting you there. And you too. Usually, I blow the horn when I come by your
It's a new build. It's quiet over there.
All right, anything else on the table?
That's fine.
Okay, staff comments, any?
The only thing I have is I just want to thank the council for approving those purchases tonight, because the warehouse and the water meters and the alarms for the lift stations are desperately needed, so I appreciate that.
City attorney.
Yes, sir, I
Our
appreciate
real
your
city
vote of
attorney.
confidence. That's all.
Okay. City administrator.
That's it.
That was it. Good motion to adjourn.
Oh, one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the employee of the month, are we still doing that?
Yeah, we are. It kind of fell through the cracks this month with everything going on, but yeah, next month.
Motion to adjourn, anybody?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you all, because I know a guy that part of fight, he's in Hampton, Stephen Jackson, and he sells all over the country. I said, I said,